Well, thank you very much. Congratulations to the AP team for winning the Hal Boyle Award. We the group of judges, the panel of judges, chose this entry out of a group of 40 entries from different news organizations. This is the award that honors the best in international reporting in print, digital, and news service from abroad. The AP series was the work of a team of about, I think, 8 reporters from different backgrounds, both print, visual, and digital, in different countries, from Latin America to the Middle East to North Africa. And it really was a riveting series of stories that brought into focus how Western policies in Washington, in the European Union, contributed to this migrant crisis that we have in the world, and how militant groups in Libya, how gangs and organized crime in Mexico, and tribal leaders in Yemen stand to benefit from these policies, and also the donations that Western countries give to try to resolve this issue and keep migrants from coming to their borders. The most impressive part about this series was that it focused on personal stories, on characters. We really got invested in the people that they profiled, but they never lost sight of the big picture, and somehow managed to tell us about the big picture policy while focusing on personal stories. And that was very impressive, and it made a long-lasting effect. So congratulations to the team. Today we have Lori Hinnant, Associated Press reporter based in Paris, who covers international security. Tim Sullivan, a veteran foreign correspondent who was based in Asia and West Africa for 20 years, who's now a roving correspondent in Minneapolis. And Julie Watson, who's based in San Diego and has been covering migration and Mexico-US border issues for the past 2 decades. Welcome and congratulations.
Thank you.
So I wanted to first start by asking you each to tell us a little bit about how this project came about, and how was it conceptualized, what was the idea behind it, and how you set about to organize it the way you did in terms of dividing the labor, the reporting, and coming up with this concept to really focus on how policy elsewhere was driving events on the ground. Tim, do you want to start?
Well, from my perspective, it was really, I got pulled into the Central American part of things, ironically, because I speak French. And we were, Cedar Atanasio, our correspondent in El Paso, had found just across the border in Juarez, a migrant colony of people who had tried to get across and had been thrown out, or were still trying to get across. And quite a lot of them were from Africa. So there were a lot of French speakers and English speakers. And so Cedar and I and Greg Bull, the photographer, went down together. And I mean, for us, the issue was, it was to try to capture the, what it meant to be stuck in this sort of immigration purgatory. Most of them barely understood the process. I mean, some of them have been through horrific stories. Some were purely economic migrants. They ranged the gamut. There was over 100 of them. And we basically moved in and spent a week living there to try to get as deeply into their lives as we could to tell these stories, because in large part, their story was one of just excruciating boredom and fear. And they spent their days just locked, for their own protection to a degree, inside this shelter, just trying to get by and hoping that the next day would bring something different.
I remember, are you talking about the piece that you wrote about the detention camp that
Yes.
had a Venezuelan bodybuilder? No, sorry, the African bodybuilder.
Yeah. Ugandan, yes.
Yes, Uganda. He was from Uganda, correct? Yes. And I wanted to actually ask you about that, because reading that, the writing was so haunting. It was as if you were there. And I wondered whether you had actually gained permission to go in there and observe their lives, because it really put you right in there with them, as if you were living with them. and captured sort of how even in limbo, these migrants were trying to sort of create a semblance of ordinary life, from sharing meals to kids playing games and exercising. So how did you gain that permission to go move in?
I mean, I'll give the credit to Cedar, my colleague from El Paso, who talked to the pastor. It's a religious shelter, although it effectively acts as a detention camp because he does not allow people to go out after dark unless they have jobs. There's a lot of gangsters who prey on these communities. And what we did is we moved in, and at least one, I mean, not at least one of us was sleeping there every night for about 10 days, and often all three of us. And it just gave us the, you know, this insight into their lives in such a way. I mean, we would sleep outside in the courtyard. It was very hot. It was the coolest place. And most of the men would sleep in the courtyard. And a couple times in the middle of the night, somebody just started crying, and we have no idea who it was. These are tough guys, you know, and it's not like we could ask or figure it out, but even not knowing that added to the sort of, to the power of what that place was like. And they did create their own little community there. You know, everybody knew the Congolese dad who was worrying all the time. You know, everybody knew that Alpha, the Ugandan, was out running every day. Everybody knew about Jennifer and her two sons who were hungry every night because she didn't have relatives to send her money, and the shelter only has 2 meals a day. And to see the way they created their own lives amid this and created a community. I mean, even though a lot of them didn't speak the same language. I mean, a lot of the Guatemalans speak indigenous languages. There's Spanish. There was, you know, 6 or 8 African languages. There was French. There was Portuguese. So, but still, locked in those rooms, they created their own community.
Right, and that really came across.